My sister looked across the dinner table and said it as casually as if she were telling me what she had ordered for lunch. Starting next week, Daniel's parents are moving into your house. I put my fork down. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. My sister, Lauren, watched my face carefully. Her boyfriend, Daniel, sat beside her with an uncomfortable smile. His parents were sitting across from me, already looking around my dining room as if they were imagining where their furniture would go. I looked at all four of them. Then I smiled. Okay, I said. Lauren frowned. That's it? I picked up my glass of water. What else would you like me to say? She leaned back in her chair. I thought you'd be happy. We're family. I nodded. Of course. Daniel's mother smiled. You're going to love having us here. This house is much too big for one person anyway. I looked around my dining room. The house was big, much bigger than I had ever imagined owning when I was younger, but I had paid for every inch of it. I had worked for 17 years in commercial real estate. I had started at the bottom, answering phones, organizing paperwork, and spending long nights studying contracts while everyone else went home. I had missed birthdays, vacations, weddings, and countless weekends because I was building something. When I finally bought my house, I paid for it myself. There was no family money, no inheritance, no wealthy husband, no secret investor, just years of work. My sister knew that. Everyone sitting at that table knew that. Yet somehow, they had decided that four people could announce their plans for my home, and I would simply accept them. Lauren smiled at me. You know, this could actually be good for you. You spend too much time alone. I probably do. Exactly. Mom always worried about you. That was the sentence that almost made me laugh. Our mother had been gone for 3 years. Lauren had barely visited her during the final year of her illness. I had been there every day. I had taken her to appointments. I had slept in the chair beside her bed. I had held her hand during the worst nights. After Mom died, the house became unbearably quiet. That was when Lauren came back into my life. She said she missed me. She said she missed our family. She said she didn't want me to be alone in that enormous house. So I invited her to stay. I thought I was giving my little sister a place to heal. I never imagined I was giving her a place from which to plan an invasion. At first, Lauren was grateful. She helped around the house. She cooked dinner. She sat with me in the evenings. Then she met Daniel. Everything changed after that. Daniel was charming when he wanted to be. He had a way of making every selfish request sound reasonable. First, he stayed for a weekend, then a week. Then he started leaving clothes in the guest room. When I asked him about it, he laughed. Come on, we're practically family. I should have stopped it then. But I didn't. I thought I was being generous. I thought Lauren was happy. I thought Daniel was harmless. I was wrong about all three. Within 6 months, Daniel had turned my house into his personal playground. He invited friends over without asking. He used my office when I was traveling. He ordered expensive food and charged it to the household account. When I complained, Lauren defended him. You don't understand him. Then came the renovations. I returned home one afternoon and found workers removing shelves from my office. I stood in the doorway. What are you doing? One of the workers looked confused. Daniel said this room was being converted into a lounge. I stared at him. My office? Daniel appeared behind me. Don't make this dramatic. I turned around. Excuse me? He shrugged. You hardly use it. I looked at the room. My office contained 17 years of business records, important contracts, property documents, personal files, years of my life, and Daniel had decided it was available for his entertainment. I called the workers off immediately. That night, Lauren accused me of humiliating Daniel. That was the first time I realized something had changed. My sister wasn't asking me for permission anymore. She was expecting obedience. A few weeks later, she fired my housekeeper. Her name was Margaret. Margaret had worked for our family for 16 years. She had cared for Mom when she was sick. She had been there when I couldn't be. One afternoon, Margaret called me crying. She told me Lauren had informed her that her services were no longer required. I was furious, but I didn't scream. I didn't confront Lauren. Instead, I apologized to Margaret. Then I paid her a full year's salary and arranged a comfortable retirement fund for her. Margaret asked me why I wasn't angry. I told her I was. But I had learned something important. Anger was useful only when you knew what to do with it. And I was beginning to understand exactly what I needed to do. I started keeping records. Every unauthorized expense, every message, every renovation request, every time Daniel entered my office, every time Lauren made a decision involving my property without asking me. I saved everything. I didn't tell them. I didn't threaten them. I simply watched. Then, one evening, Lauren announced that Daniel's parents were moving in. That was the moment I realized their behavior had never been random. It had been a plan. They had slowly tested my boundaries. First Daniel, then his belongings, then his friends, then the renovations, then the dismissal of my staff. Each time I tolerated something, they pushed further. They were trying to discover how much of my life they could take before I finally resisted. And now they had reached the final step. They wanted 4 people living in my house. When I smiled and said, okay, Lauren thought she had won. She had no idea what I had already prepared. The next morning, I woke up early. I drove downtown to my attorney's office. I had worked with him for years. He knew my business. He knew my property. Most importantly, he knew me. I placed a thick folder on his desk. I need you to review everything. He opened it. Inside were copies of the deed, financial records, security footage, messages, invoices, photographs, witness statements, and one document I had prepared weeks earlier. My attorney looked at me. Are you sure? Yes. You understand what this means? I do. He studied my face. Then why didn't you do this months ago? I smiled. Because I needed to know how far they were willing to go. That was the truth. I didn't want revenge. I wanted certainty. I wanted to know whether my sister had simply lost her judgment or whether she had deliberately decided to take advantage of me. Now I knew. My attorney made several calls. By the end of the day, everything was in motion. I returned home that evening and acted as if nothing had changed. Lauren was sitting in the living room with Daniel. They were looking at furniture catalogs. I glanced at them. Planning something? Lauren smiled. Daniel's parents are coming next Thursday. I remember. We'll need to make some changes upstairs. I nodded. Of course. Daniel looked at me suspiciously. You're taking this surprisingly well. I smiled. I'm learning to let people make their own decisions. He didn't understand. That was exactly what I wanted. The following week, I became even quieter. Lauren assumed I had surrendered. Daniel became careless. He started talking openly about the move. His parents sold their home. They ordered new furniture. They hired movers. They even discussed which bedroom they wanted. I listened. I said nothing. But behind the scenes, everything had changed. The house was no longer the same house they believed they were moving into. The security system had been upgraded. The locks had been changed. My documents had been removed. My valuables were safely stored elsewhere. The staff had been instructed not to allow unauthorized access. And most importantly, the legal process I had initiated was complete. I had not sold my home. I had not abandoned it. I had not run away. I had done something much more important. I had protected it. The night before Daniel's parents arrived, Lauren came into my room. She stood at the doorway. You know, you don't have to be so difficult. I looked up from my book. I'm not being difficult. You could make this easier. For whom? She sighed. Everyone. I smiled. That's an interesting word. What? Everyone. She stared at me. This is my house, Lauren. She became angry. You always do this. Do what? Act like you're better than everyone because you have money. I closed my book. I've never said I was better than you. You don't have to say it. I looked at her. Then why do you keep saying it for me? She walked away. I knew then that the relationship was over, not because of the house, because my sister had stopped seeing me as her sister. She had started seeing me as an obstacle. The next morning, 3 moving trucks arrived. I watched them from my bedroom window. Daniel came outside smiling. His parents stepped out of the first truck. They looked excited. They had sold their home. They had packed their belongings. They believed they were moving into a beautiful house. They believed they were becoming part of a wealthy family. They believed I had agreed. They were wrong. Daniel walked toward the front door. He reached into his pocket. Then he stopped. The key didn't work. He tried again. Nothing. He looked at Lauren. She rushed forward. What happened? Daniel tried the key again. The door remained locked. Lauren stared at me through the window. I opened the front door. She walked toward me. What did you do? I smiled. Good morning. Why doesn't the key work? Because it doesn't belong to you. Her face changed. What are you talking about? I stepped outside. Daniel walked toward me. Don't play games. I'm not. He pointed toward the trucks. My parents are moving in. I know. You said it was okay. I said okay. Exactly. I never said you owned the house. Daniel laughed. You can't just change the locks. I looked at him. Actually, I can. His smile disappeared. Lauren stepped forward. You're being ridiculous. I reached into my coat and handed her an envelope. She stared at it. What is this? Open it. She tore it open. Her eyes moved across the first page, then the second. Her face became pale. What is this? Read it. She looked at me. You can't do this. I already did. Daniel grabbed the papers from her. His eyes moved quickly, then he stopped. His entire expression changed. His parents were standing behind him. What is it? His mother asked. He didn't answer. I did. The property is now protected by a legal occupancy agreement. Anyone who wants to live here must have my written permission. Lauren stared at me. You said they could move in. I said I understood what you were telling me. That's not the same thing. No. I looked at the moving trucks. That's why I smiled. Daniel's father stepped forward. You can't leave us standing outside. I looked at him. I didn't ask you to sell your home. His face turned red. You knew we were moving. I knew you planned to move. You should have stopped us. I smiled. Why? Nobody answered, because there was nothing I could say that would make their decision my responsibility. My sister began crying. How could you do this to me? I looked at her. How could I do this to you? She nodded. You're my sister. Exactly. I pointed toward the house. That's why you were allowed to stay here in the first place. Her tears continued. I thought you loved me. I do. Then why are you doing this? I took a breath. Because loving you doesn't mean surrendering my life to you. That sentence silenced everyone. Then I told them the truth. I had spent months documenting what they had done, the unauthorized renovations, the financial charges, the threats, the messages, the attempts to remove people from my property, the plans to bring in additional residents, everything. I had prepared for the day when they would cross the final line, and they had. Daniel looked at me. You set us up. No. I shook my head. You set yourselves up. He became furious. You think you're so smart? No. I looked at him. I think I'm responsible for my own home. That was when my attorney arrived. He stepped out of a car parked behind me. 2 property officers accompanied him. They weren't there to create a scene. They were there because I had anticipated exactly how this conversation might go. My attorney approached. He handed me another document. I turned toward Lauren. This is the final notice. She stared at me. What notice? The notice that you are no longer permitted to occupy the property. She looked confused. You can't evict me. I nodded. I can. But I'm your sister. That doesn't give you ownership. I live here. Because I allowed you to. She looked at Daniel. He suddenly seemed less confident. I continued. You had every opportunity to leave peacefully. Lauren shook her head. You didn't tell me. I did. When? The night you told me your boyfriend's parents were moving in. She stared at me. I smiled. I told you okay. That's not telling me to leave. No. I looked at the moving trucks. It's telling you that I finally understood what you were doing. The silence was enormous. Then something unexpected happened. Daniel's mother started crying. She looked at Lauren. You told us this was your house. Lauren froze. I looked at her. She said nothing. Her mother-in-law continued. You said your sister was moving out. Lauren's face turned white. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The truth was coming out on its own. Daniel looked at Lauren. What did you tell them? She shook her head. Nothing. His father interrupted. You told us you owned half of this place. I stared at my sister. She couldn't look at me. That was the final piece. The reason they had been so confident, the reason they had sold their home, the reason they believed they could move in. Lauren had lied. She had told Daniel's parents that I had agreed to transfer ownership. She had told them I was moving to another city. She had told them the house would eventually belong to her. The entire plan had been built on a lie. I looked at her. Is that true? She didn't answer. Daniel turned toward her. Is it true? Still nothing. His parents began arguing with him. The moving crew stood silently beside the trucks. Nobody knew what to do. Then I said something that surprised everyone. Your belongings can stay in the trucks. They all looked at me. I am giving you time to find another place. Lauren looked relieved. Really? I nodded. Yes. Her relief lasted only a second. But you will not be living here. Her face fell again. I continued. I will pay for a hotel for 3 nights. Daniel stared at me. You're paying for us? No. I looked at him. I'm paying for my sister. Then I turned toward Lauren. After that, you're on your own. She started crying again. This time, I didn't comfort her. I had spent years confusing compassion with responsibility. I finally understood the difference. Compassion meant I didn't want her to suffer. Responsibility meant I refused to let her destroy me. The moving trucks left that afternoon. No furniture entered my house. No strangers moved into my rooms. No one took my keys. The house was mine again. But the story didn't end there. For the next several months, Lauren tried everything. She called, she sent messages, she asked relatives to intervene. She told everyone I had abandoned her. She said I had humiliated her. She said I had destroyed her relationship. She never mentioned the lie. She never mentioned the documents. She never mentioned that she had planned to take control of my home. She only talked about the moment I refused. Eventually, I stopped responding. I didn't need to defend myself. The truth had already defended me. Daniel's relationship with Lauren ended within 6 months. His parents returned to their hometown and rented a small apartment. They had lost almost everything because they had trusted a promise that was never real. Daniel blamed Lauren. Lauren blamed me. Neither of them accepted responsibility. That was their choice. My choice was different. I changed the way I lived. I repaired my relationship with Margaret. I hired new staff. I renovated my office. I turned the room Daniel had tried to take into something even better. I filled it with photographs of my mother. I kept the desk where I had signed my first major property deal. I placed my father's old watch in a glass case. For the first time in years, the house felt like mine again. Not because I had changed the locks, not because I had removed my sister, but because I had finally stopped apologizing for owning the life I had worked to build. 6 months later, Lauren called me. I almost didn't answer, but I did. She was quiet. Then she said something I never expected. "I was jealous of you." I said nothing. She continued, "I thought everything came easily to you." I looked around my office at the files, the contracts, the photographs, the years of work. Nothing came easily. I know that now. I closed my eyes. For a moment, I remembered us as children, two sisters, one family, before money, before houses, before resentment, before betrayal. I wanted to forgive her, but forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, and it didn't mean giving her access to my life again. "I hope you build something you're proud of," I told her. She started crying. "I miss you. I miss who we used to be." There was a long silence. Then she said goodbye. I never heard from her again. A year later, I sold the house. Not because she had forced me out, not because I was afraid, and not because I couldn't protect it. I sold it because I finally realized I didn't need to keep living inside the memories of everything I had lost. I bought a smaller home near the mountains. I kept my office, I kept my career, I kept my freedom, and I kept the lessons. The biggest one was simple. People will sometimes mistake your kindness for weakness. They will test your boundaries. They will take one small thing, then another, then another. And if you keep giving without saying no, eventually they will convince themselves that everything you own belongs to them. The answer isn't always anger. Sometimes the strongest response is patience. Sometimes you need to stop arguing and start observing. Sometimes you need to let people reveal themselves. My sister thought she was announcing that someone else's family was moving into my home. She thought I would panic. She thought I would fight. She thought I would surrender. Instead, I smiled, because by then I had already prepared. And the most satisfying part wasn't watching the moving trucks leave. It wasn't seeing my sister's face when she realized the house was still mine. It wasn't even discovering that her entire plan had been built on lies. The most satisfying part was realizing that I no longer needed anyone's permission to protect myself. For years, I believed being a good sister meant always making room for someone else. I thought love meant tolerating disrespect. I thought forgiveness meant opening the door again and again. I was wrong. Sometimes love means walking away. Sometimes forgiveness means letting someone live with the consequences of their choices. And sometimes when someone tells you they are moving into your home without your permission, the best thing you can do is smile. Not because you are weak, not because you are afraid, but because you already know something they don't. They haven't won. They have simply given you one final reason to close the door.